I got robbed. The reason why I'm smiling is because of how ironic it is. I'm currently in the safest of the three countries I've been in since I started traveling. And every single time I change countries or cities or whatever, people were always like, oh, be careful, it's dangerous. And do I get robbed in the most dangerous country? No. Do I get robbed in the most dangerous city? No. I get robbed in the least dangerous country in a small village in the middle of the forest in the hostel. So it's just kind of ironic when you think about it. So, I was lying in bed this morning, awake but half awake, so kind of like just chilling in bed with my eyes closed, waiting for other people to, go out of the dorm room so I can just kind of relax and chill by myself. And I hear this guy kind of like rummaging and moving around the room, and I'm like, okay, whatever. At some point, I see him like going to a corner where like next to like another girl's bed, and it's like I don't really pay attention because they both arrived the previous night, and I just like assume they were together. So I'm like, oh, whatever. He's gonna get something in her bag. Like I don't know. And then at some point, I hear like the sound of a lock, like being removed and put like on top of the metal lockers. I'm like, okay, I don't remember anyone else having a lock, but they got here pretty late last night. And when I went back to the dorm room, they were already all in bed and the light was out. So whatever. I don't really pay much attention, but when I hear him putting it back on, I glance in his direction and I'm like, wait, that looks a lot like my lock and a lot like my locker. But I'm not really sure if it's me, so I'm like, that's probably my imagination, and I'm still like half asleep at the point. So I don't really pay any attention, but I do see him like open all like 5 other lockers and look inside. I'm like, what is he looking for? So like a minute or so after he leaves the room, and I'm curious, so I look and I'm like, yeah, okay, he literally put the lock back on my locker and locked it. And the thing is, like, I've been mostly alone in the room like for half the time I've been here, so I've kind of like taken the habit of not locking, so just like putting the lock on the locker but not locked, because like it's ridiculous to do that when you're alone and it's annoying. And since I was alone the day before and they arrived late last night, and when I went to the room, like I was saying, everyone was already in bed and the light was out, so it didn't occur to me to lock the lock. And of course my wallet was in the locker, so I'm like, oh crap. So the second I see the lock is locked, so I'm like, shit, he was in my locker and my wallet's in there. So go up to the locker, unlock the lock, go in, check, like, all right, my computer's still there, my headphones are still there, my bag, everything still seems there, even my wallet is still there, and there's money in it. So I'm like, everything's good. But I'm like, just to be safe, I take out the money and count it. And ironically enough, yesterday I went to the ATM to take out 100,000 colones, which is like $190 Canadian. And that $100,000, or that 100,000 colones is missing. All that's left is the 36,000 that I had. So basically, he took my wallet, took out the money, took 100 and left the 36,000. That way I would think like, oh, my money's still there, not a worry, especially since he locked the lock after. And the thing is, that was his mistake. He locked the lock when I left it unlocked because I was alone there before and it didn't occur to me to lock it. So I'm like, all right, it's been like 2 minutes. The guy's still downstairs. And I'm like, I go downstairs and I confront him. I'm like, dude, you stole my fucking money. Give it back. And of course, he completely denies it. He's like, no, I didn't steal your money. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, I saw you go through the lockers. I saw you put the lock back on my locker and lock it. You stole my money. Give me back my fucking money. And as I'm confronting the guy, there's another girl from the hostel who comes up. She's like, hey, some of my money is missing too. So basically, he robbed both of us. And he's completely denying it. And he's like packing his stuff, getting ready to leave. And like he tries to go back upstairs. And like I follow him upstairs. I'm like, dude, what's your name? He's like, Diego. I'm like, what's your last name? He refuses to give it to me. I'm like, at least I have the first name, so I can go to the person who was in charge of the hostel, give him the name, and she can get the last name, and then we can contact the police and give the name to the police. And then he kind of like goes out and goes back down the stairs, and I'm tempted to follow him, but I'm like, I just want to double check what's in my locker just to make sure like he didn't steal anything. So I check like, credit cards are still there, computer's still there. I didn't think to look for my passport, but after that, I looked later on and it was there, so everything's good. He literally only stole that 100,000. So, which is smart when you think about it, because if you only steal cash, there's no way for you to prove that he stole your cash. It's just cash. So anyway, I come back downstairs, and by then, like, the guy's gone. I'm like, fuck, I should have followed him. Now he's gone. Like, we don't know where he is. But I'm like, all right, go to the person in charge of the hostel, knock, there's no answer. I'm like, fuck. So I go back to the girl, and another girl who was there and, like, overheard everything texted the woman from the hostel, and I'm told, like, all right, the woman's in her car in the hostel driving around looking for him. So I'm like, okay, I guess there's nothing I can do, because in my head I'm like, all right, I was dumb, I didn't follow him just because, like, I wasn't prepared for this. I was just focused on, is all my shit there aside from the money that he stole? So that was the one thing I regretted, not following him. But so in my head, I'm like, all right, I can go to the bus station. If he's not there, then I come back, get the numbers for the other hostels, call all the hostels and say, like, hey, is this guy staying there? He robbed us. And anyway, but then when I come back down and I hear, oh, the woman from the hostel is driving around looking for him, I'm like, okay, we'll just wait till she comes back. At this point, there's nothing else I can do anyway. So eventually she comes back and she's like, yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't able to find him. But then the cops are on their way, so the cops show up, give the report, fill out everything, sign the paper, then the cops leave. And at that point, I'm like, all right, that's the end of it. Never going to hear from him again. Half an hour later, the woman comes back. She's like, they found him. We need to go to the police station. I'm like, holy shit, I was not expecting that. So we show up at the police station. Sure enough, the guy's sitting there. Same exact guy. Obviously, he's still fucking denying it. And we kind of like wait around for like a good half an hour, 45 minutes. At some point, the other girl who was robbed, she's like, hey, I need to leave because, and it's like her story's even worse than mine because I went to the ATM the day before and took out the money and it got stolen the day after. So it's like, that's kind of ironic and annoying, but she literally lost her credit card and she was on her way back to San Jose today to get her replacement credit card and the guy stole her money. And now she doesn't have enough money to get there. I'm just like, wow, that fucking sucks. And it's like, she tried convincing the guy, like, she explained the situation, like, hey, I need the money for the bus. Like, I'm stuck here. Like, just give it back. And it's like, of course, he kept denying and everything. So anyway, eventually she had to leave because she's like, it's a waste of time. I didn't see anything anyway because I was the one in the room. She was downstairs when it happened. And she's like, I need to go, so I'm just gonna go back to the hostel and head off now. And I decided to stay behind because I'm like, hey, I'm gonna see this through. So wait, maybe like total in 1 hour. Eventually the cops come out, they're like, okay, we don't need you anymore, you can go. I'm like, what was the point of me coming down here? But anyway, basically, I went down there for nothing, already filled out the report, there's nothing else I can do. And I don't know exactly what's going to happen to the guy. All I know is that while I was waiting for the woman from the hostel to come pick me up in her car, the guy is released and he leaves. Now, before he leaves, before he was released, before he left, I got a chance to speak to him. And before that, I was speaking with my friend Aaron, and he was like, hey, what would you say to him if you had a chance? And I'm like, I don't really know. But it kind of got me thinking of like, hey, if I get a chance, I want to speak to him. I don't know what I'm going to say, but whatever is going to seem right is going to come out. So I got a chance to, and I'm like, I don't remember exactly what I said, but it was something along the lines of, I don't hold a grudge. I don't blame you. I'm not angry. You had your reasons for doing what you did. I don't want to, blame you and be resentful and everything because that's not who I am. However, you deserve, you should be a better person. You can be way better than this. And I explained, like, I sold everything that I own in the world. And you stole part of the money that I had left. That was all I had left. That was my dream of traveling the world. And you stole a part of that dream. And every time you steal from someone, you steal part of their dream. And of course he tried to deny, like, no, I didn't steal. I'm like, just listen, okay? We both know you stole it. I don't need you to admit it to me. I know you're not going to admit it. But admit it to yourself. And admit to yourself that you can be better than this. And surprisingly, he's like, okay, I'll try. Like, I'll think about it. So I'm like, I don't know. Maybe he was just saying that to shut me up. I don't know. All I know is that in the grand scheme of things, like, okay, it sucks losing the $190. And I wish I didn't have to, but aside from that, I'm very grateful for this entire experience because I've never experienced anything like this. It makes a pretty good story when you think about it. And I'm very impressed with myself because in the past, like when crappy stuff like that happens, like in the moment it sucks. And then after you look back and you're like, okay, in the grand scheme of things, I learned some valuable things from that, so I don't regret the experience. But now, while that experience was still going on, I was able to appreciate and be grateful for it. So yeah, overall, I don't hold any grudge. I do regret not following him because if I followed him, I might have been able to get the money back. And yeah, that's pretty much the only thing I regret. But it's a small regret because at the end, like, I don't know how long he's been doing this. I don't know how often he's done this. I don't know if he's been arrested before. But if this was his first time being arrested, and what I said to him, there's a slight chance that he could, contemplate things and decide to change his life. If he's been arrested before, he's been through this before, he doesn't give a shit, and he's going to keep doing it. But at least I did what I could do. And I'm grateful for the experience. And I don't know, I'm happy with how I handled most of that. And like I said, I don't hold any grudges. I'm not angry or anything. So it's just, hey, it's something that happened. Moving on. So that is the story of how I got robbed. Took 5.5 months of traveling, and it's in the safest country, the safest village, literally, inside the hostel. So it's like pretty much the safest place there was. That's where I got robbed. But you know what? Finally happened, so I guess people can be like, hey, I was right. It's dangerous to travel. And I can be right of like, all right, I don't give a shit. I'm not going to stop that. I'm not going to let that stop me. So I guess everyone's got what they wanted. People can say they were right. The guy got the money he stole from me. And I get to be satisfied with who I am and the way that I react to the situations of life. So overall, pretty fun experience, aside from the fact that, I lost the money. But aside from that, yeah, grateful for what happened. So fuck you, Diego, but at the same time, thank you.